April 20th, 2021. A little noisy back there. We're at the Park Avenue grade crossing between Huntington and Greenlawn. We're looking west on the Port Jefferson Branch. You can see the east end of the MU yard, and there's an M7 sitting there, third rail. I'm going to cover a tour of the non-electrified portion of the Port Jeff Branch, getting all the railroad crossing, some stations, interesting structures, and of course any trains that are nearby. And we're looking east. You can see there's third rail that extends eastward from here a little ways. That's to allow MU trains that come out of the east switch here, which is a automatic lock hand-thrown switch to make reverse moves to go into Huntington Station or go west. I think years ago this switch was called Hunt 4, but it's no longer an interlocking, it's electric lock control hand-thrown switch. You can see that it is. Looking west, that's a long storage track that the MUs use between here and Huntington Station. Next crossing, moving further east towards Greenlawn, is Lake Road. Looking east, nice straight track through here. This looks like a pretty good place to rail fan. Looking west, this crossing is right near some development. We're now further east at what looks like the Greenlawn Road crossing, but it actually has another name, Cuba Hill Road. We're in the community of Greenlawn now. And we're looking north on Cuba Hill Road and west on the railroad. This looks like a pretty neat spot to rail fan too. Get some good shots of approaching eastbound trains. Looking east from here, you can see a hand-thrown switch leading into a siding on the south side. It's like a maintenance away yard. Long Island used to run a freight train out of Greenlawn called RF91. A lot of people conjure up images of scenery on the Port Jefferson Branch and wooded areas, but this part of the Port Jefferson Branch in the diesel territory is pretty much suburbia. And approaching eastbound at 10:31 is train 608 en route from Jamaica to Port Jefferson. Should be slowing for his Greenlawn stop right here. We're now in downtown Greenlawn at the Broadway crossing. Greenlawn is a nice little village. It's Long Island's air-conditioned city. I call it that because it has the highest elevation of any Long Island Railroad station. Greenlawn is 226 feet above sea level. I hope I don't get altitude sickness. I'm in pretty bad shape if I do. And looking east from Broadway, you can see the Greenlawn station. Looking west from the crossing, the track definitely has a grade going westbound. Greenlawn Station itself is in a dip. You'll notice this restaurant on the corner of Broadway called Old Field Restaurant. The original name for Greenlawn was Old Field. Then it was changed to Centerport, and then Centerport-Greenlawn, and then finally Greenlawn. And this is the Greenlawn Station. This station was built in 1910. Replaced a station that was burned down. First depot was built here in 1868, and it was called Centerport, but in 1870 it was renamed Greenlawn. And here I'm looking west and standing on the active platform here. Curiously, they built a platform on the south side. When they built it back in the late 90s, they were intending to have a controlled siding here where both tracks would be used by revenue passenger trains. But that never panned out. The siding here is hand-thrown switches at both ends, and this platform is largely unused except in emergencies. With that heavy-duty rust on the siding here, you can tell it hasn't been used in quite some time. And 10:52, the gates are going down on Broadway for westbound train 621. Scoot from Port Jefferson to Huntington. You'll have DE30AC number 409 on the rear. He has a K5 LLA horn, so going east on a future trip, we should be able to hear him. It'll be a beautiful day here today, about 70 degrees and sunny. You can see the trees are getting green pretty well. That train had DM30AC 510. They must have swapped it out. The Taylor Avenue crossing, just east of the Greenlawn station. Looking east from the crossing, the Port Jefferson Branch starts around a curve. It's actually an S-curve. And in the middle of that S-curve, around that vicinity, is where the old Northport branch used to diverge. That was the end of the line on this line until they built out the Port Jefferson. Then they closed the branch to Northport. And looking west, you can see the east end of the siding here and the Greenlawn station going down the slope. Broadway is practically at the base of the dip in Greenlawn. And this crossing at Taylor Avenue is right by Harbor Fields High School. Just east of the S-curve, east of Greenlawn and west of Northport, this is overpass over Stony Hollow Road. And our next crossing east, we're in East Northport now, is Elwood Road. Looking west from the crossing, trains seem to be coming out of a hole coming east. And looking east, sharp curve. This is a great spot to get westbounds coming out of that curve. This road does see an awful lot of traffic though. South of the crossing here at Elwood, there's a little area you can drive in and park. It's not posted. You could probably get away with parking there and get a couple of trains. Especially some eastbounds coming out of that dip to the west. Yeah, this would be a great spot for a westbound. Further east at the Northport station, a little historical marker here with some interesting stories to tell. And here is this beautiful 1873 station that they speak of on the sign. This is the new Northport station. But this is actually not located in Northport itself. It's located in East Northport. That's the name of the community here. But East Northport is south of Northport, not east of Northport. You could call it South Northport, but that sounds like an oxymoron. From any angle, it's a beautiful structure, one of the best on the railroad. There are several stations on the Long Island Railroad that follow this design pattern. Mineola, Bayshore, Riverhead. There's only one platform, one track here, although years ago there used to be a siding here and a block limit station called NP. I think that was done away with in the 40s or 50s. And the crossing just east of the Northport station is the main drag here, Larkfield Road. Just east of the Larkfield Road crossing is this pedestal signal guarding the approach to Duke 1 interlocking. It's the west end of a controlled siding that starts here. The east end is called Duke 2. Years ago, that siding on the east end was called Evans, and this one was called Duke. And this magnificent structure, which is between Northport and Kings Park, is the trestle over Town Line Road, otherwise known as Bread and Cheese Hollow Road. Town Line Road separates the towns of Smithtown and Huntington. Bread and Cheese Hollow Road is the alternate name for it. How that road got its name, back in the 1660s, a fellow by the name of Richard Smith wanted to discover some land in this area. He wanted to take over real estate from the Indians. So the Native Americans said he could get as much territory as he could by riding on the back of this bull that they provided him. And he must have covered a lot of territory in one day, because the town of Smithtown is rather large. And this area, Bread and Cheese Hollow Road, supposedly where the native tribes fed him bread and cheese for lunch on his long ride on that bull. Here comes train 610 at 12:03. Trestle looks like it was made by an overzealous erector set buff. It's really cool. I don't know how long it's been around, but I know it's been around longer than I've been on this earth. This trestle is at the bottom of a dip. From the west it goes down a big slide and it goes up again on the eastern end. 610 went by before between Huntington and Port Jeff, and momentarily we should have 623 westbound from Port Jefferson to Hicksville. Train 623 at 12:11. 610 and 623 met at Kings Park, next station to the east. Now we're further east of the trestle at the Meadow Glen Road crossing. We're just west of the Sunken Meadow State Parkway between Northport and Kings Park. Relatively quiet place. Right by milepost 42, measured from Long Island City, Queens. Looking west from the crossing, you can see how the track going west descends and then rises up again. It rises up once it passes over that trestle we were at. And straight track looking east to Kings Park in a rather pastoral setting. Now just west of Kings Park Station at Old Comac Road crossing. Now looking west, the tracks go straight into a wooded area and soon pass over the Sunken Meadow State Parkway. Looking east, we can see the Kings Park Station in the distance and the interlocking of Fox 1, where the one track switches into two. We're standing on the west end of the station platform at Kings Park, and I'm standing here instead of the crossing because you can get a much better view here. That's First Avenue. First Avenue is right at the west end of Fox Interlocking. You can see the interlocking just to the west of there where the siding comes out. You can see the track goes uphill westbound. There's also a Long Island Railroad maintenance vehicle here. And Fox 1 is guarded by these pedestal signals coming off the siding and off the main track. Looking west. Unlike Greenlawn, both of these platforms are well used. In fact, on weekdays during the day, meets occur every 90 minutes here at Kings Park. This station, many years ago, this town used to be called St. John Land, but was renamed Kings Park. In fact, there used to be a spur that went to Kings Park Hospital just northeast of town that used to run alongside the platform, right where the edge of the parking lot is. But that was removed and the spur to the hospital was placed further east. Now that spur is gone. You'll note this water tower. Back in 1947, there was a bad Long Island Railroad wreck here. Train picked a switch, flopped on its side, cars all over the place, locomotive was all over the place, and the wreckage slid and just barely missed hitting the foundation of that water tower. Otherwise it would have came down, adding to the catastrophic events of the day. Yeah, this station was actually called St. John's Land, plural, and renamed Kings Park in 1891. Here's the station building, which has been rebuilt. The original rebuilt depot was built in 1948. And the crossing just east of the Kings Park station is a main road, Indian Head Road. Goes north-south through town, and Route 25A goes east-west through town. That group of stores over there is part of Tansy Plaza. Years ago, there used to be a large lumber yard here called the Tansy Lumber Company. Tansy was a long-time Kings Park resident, and Tansy lumber was a huge fixture in this town for decades. It's long gone. Looking west from Indian Head Road crossing, you can see the station building and the water tower, which is remarkably still standing, but history may have had other plans for that thing. Looking east from Indian Head Road, see the tracks curving to the right. Just beyond that curve is Fox 2 interlocking, where the siding ends and becomes single track once again. You'll note on the left-hand side, that building is the Kings Park Fire Department. Years ago, the Kings Park Hospital spur used to branch off the branch here and pass to the right of the firehouse and proceed over 25A. Today, that old right-of-way is a hiking trail. And this pedestal signal is on the siding, guarding the approach of Fox 2 interlocking, where it goes down a single track. Years ago, this interlocking used to be called Green. Now further east of Kings Park at the Lawrence Road crossing. It's a rather picturesque one. Looking to the west, you can see the track drop down a little dip and then come up again before they round the curve into Kings Park. You can really get a good look at it here. This crossing is actually at the top of a grade. Looking to the east towards Smithtown, you can see the tracks start to drop down sharply. And those tracks descend quite a ways until they get to the Nissaquag River Trestle just west of Smithtown. And 138 approaching his train 651, climbing up out of the grade en route from Port Jefferson to Jamaica. You'll be meeting train 650 at Kings Park. That should be coming very soon. Be arriving Kings Park in about a minute and a half. And 146 approaching Lawrence Road is train 650, Hicksville to Port Jefferson. Going down the chute, and then back up again, and then going way down. wimping out on the horn there, bud. Remember I was telling you about Richard Smith's bull ride, where he accumulated real estate which later would become Smithtown in 1665? Well, here's the bull monument to commemorate that fateful day. Apparently there was a tit-for-tat motive behind that bull ride. And the bull monument guards over the intersection of New York Route 25A on the left with New York Route 25 on the right. The two roads merge and combine through the village of Smithtown, and on the east side of town they separate again. Another interesting structure on the Port Jefferson Branch, crossing over Route 25 and the Nissaquag River. Becomes 653 at 301. En route to Huntington, 652 should be coming within the next 10 minutes. 652 is on his way from Huntington to Port Jeff. This trestle lies in a dip like the one at Bread and Cheese Hollow Road. A steep descent for an eastbound coming to this bridge, and then as the train passes over the trestle, you should hear him throttling up to go up the steep grade into Smithtown Station. And we're at Smithtown now. We're looking west at post interlocking. You're seeing the westbound position light signals that guard the interlocking. Years ago, post 1 used to be called Hare, H-A-R-E. Looking east toward Smithtown Station, the tracks have been climbing up from the Nissaquag River trestle that I was just by, and it peaks as it goes over the Route 25/25A overpass before arriving in the station. Trains coming eastbound up the hill have to encounter a 30 code and a 15 code, so it's a little tricky. We're at the east end of the Smithtown Station platform, and you're looking at the signals guarding post 2, eastbound signals. Crossing in the background is Landing Avenue. And this is the Smithtown train station. It was built by the Smithtown and Port Jefferson Railroad in 1872 and rebuilt in 1937. And it's since been rebuilt again. Yeah, we're at the crossing at the east end of Smithtown Station, Landing Avenue. Looking west at post 2 interlocking in the Smithtown Station, and the empty hulk of Smithtown Bowl on the right. That's been closed since the pandemic started. Don't know if it's going to reopen again. I bowled there a couple of times in the past. Didn't care for it. Too much oil. I do better on drier lanes. My left-handed ball does wonderful things without oil in the lanes. In fact, one summer league I belonged in the early 90s, I had high game in that summer league, 253. Unfortunately, we lost that game. My teammates figured they didn't have to bowl that hard because they thought I could do it all by myself. That's what teamwork is all about. Looking east, you can see the position light signal, which is the approach to post 2. Westbound would look awfully good this time of day. A little further east of Smithtown at the River Road crossing. Looking east, nice straight track coming from St. James. Looking west, around that curve, you're approaching Landing Avenue and the Smithtown Station. This location has outstanding foliage in the fall. St. James. This is the Northern Boulevard crossing. It's funny that this crossing would be called Northern Boulevard, because to get to this crossing you have to turn off Route 25A. Now Route 25A, when it gets into the borough of Queens in New York City, it becomes Northern Boulevard. So in essence, to get to Northern Boulevard you have to turn off Northern Boulevard. But here in Suffolk County it's called North Country Road. We're looking east towards the St. James Station. Looking west from here, it's straight as an arrow. Looking east here at Northern Boulevard. Rail fanning this branch today has given me opportunities of finding new photo locations. And now we're in downtown St. James at the Lake Avenue crossing. Lake Avenue is the main drag here, other than 25A. East, tracks go down a little dip, come back up again as they approach the old flower field station site. And St. James is famous for having this lovely old depot, built in 1873 by Calvin Lamadou, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, although I've never been accused of having good French. The French Canadian that I met up in Dorval outside of Montreal one year wasn't known for his tact. He said my French was quote-unquote horrible. Just one platform here, no siding. And we're east of St. James now. We're at the Mauritius Road crossing, even though we are nowhere near Mauritius. That's a community on the South Shore between Mastic Shirley and Spionk. Center Mauritius and East Mauritius and Mauritius. Looking east, tracks continue to drop down and then they rise up before the next crossing. Looking west towards St. James, you can see the tracks sort of level off before getting to the station. .423, here comes train 655 en route from Port Jefferson to Jamaica. One of the few off-hour trains that operate to and from Jamaica on this line. He's going to be meeting train 654 at Smithtown. And he'll be meeting train 656 at Duke Interlocking at Northport. So he's going to be fighting upstream a little bit against other diesel trains. Rather meek horn blowing. Further east at the next crossing, Mill Pond Road. We're just west of the old flower field station site. Looking west, you can definitely see a sharp descent from St. James. Nice curve to the east. Be a great spot for a westbound right now. We're now at the most unusual grade crossing on the Port Jefferson Branch, Parkside Avenue. This is located in the Flower Field Industrial Campus. It's near where the old Flower Field Station used to be, which was closed in 1958. This crossing is closed. It's gated on both sides, but yet the crossing mechanism still works, and they still sound the horn for the crossing. So they must use it once in a great while if they're using both sides of the complex. Sometimes they have big events here and there are a lot of cars here, and then they have to open up this crossing, but I've never seen it open. And looking east from the crossing, you can see the grade drop off a little bit and towards Stony Brook. Here comes train 654 at 4:43. You can see the gates are still working. Getting windy too. Oh, here's another scenic highlight of this scenic Port Jefferson branch. It's the overpass over Stony Brook Road between St. James and Stony Brook. Busy road. We're now at the quaint Stony Brook station. It was built by the Smithtown and Port Jefferson Railroad in 1873, although some would say 1888. It was rebuilt in 1917 and remains to this day. Serves the large Stony Brook University nearby. At the east end of the station at Stony Brook is this pedestrian crossing, the SUNY crossing, Stony Brook SUNY, State University of New York. Big campus. We're at the east end of the Stony Brook station platform here. The sprawling campus is to the south over the tracks. You can see a lot of students taking advantage of the crossing. And the position light signals eastbound are guarding Stony 2 interlocking. Stony 1 is on the west end. Years ago, before this is remoted, this was a hand-thrown siding, and the call letters were BK, Bravo Kilo, BK Block Limit Station. And 5:12, the gates are going down for the first of the rush hour fleet. It's train 656, en route from Hunters Point Avenue to Port Jefferson. And his next stop and last stop will be Port Jefferson. We're now further east in rather scenic country. This is the old Setauket Station site. It was discontinued as a station in 1980. The tracks cross over in the foreground Gnarled Hollow Road. Looking east, tracks go down, there's another dip, another bridge over the Old Town Road. Then the tracks rise up sharply into Port Jefferson. Approaching now at 6:03 is one of the longer trains on the Port Jefferson branch. Train 658 from Penn Station, New York to Port Jefferson. He'll be equipped with 2 dual-mode locomotives, 1 on each end, and 8 cars in the middle. Now he's on the final climb to Port Jefferson. Next stop. May not necessarily get a train at every location I go to, but I have to capture these neat pieces of infrastructure on this branch. This is the Port Jeff Branch Bridge over Old Town Road in East Setauket. Driving up Hulse Road in East Setauket. Here comes train 657. Here's one of the prettiest crossings on the Port Jeff Branch. Hulse Road in East Setauket. To the west of the crossing, you have a nice S-curve. And a pretty sharp curve to the east, climbing up towards Port Jefferson. That train we saw at this crossing, 657, it's a strange one. He's a deadhead out of Port Jefferson to Stony Brook, where he picks up his first passengers. But it's a slow go. He'll be sitting at Stony Brook meeting 660 and 662. He's going to meet train 664 at Smithtown. He's going to meet train 698, formerly 666, at Kings Park. And then he's going to meet 668 at Duke Siding, east of Northport Station. So if you're in a big hurry to get to the city, don't take this train. And at 6:30, our next dual mode power train is train 660 from Penn Station, New York to Port Jefferson. We'll have another 8-car set of dual modes on each end. And he'll be working up the grade here at Hulse Road. You can hear him working hard up the grade. Yeah, we're just west of Port Jefferson now. We're at the Lawrence Aviation Crossing. Looking west, this is milepost 57, measured from Long Island City. As you can see, not much happens at Lawrence Aviation anymore. Looking east from the crossing, you can see 660. He's pulling out of the station at Port Jefferson, heading for the yard. The tracks on this side of the next crossing is the old Port Jeff yard. They have a brand new storage yard. Well, new, not exactly new, it was built about 20 some odd years ago. Now we're just west of Port Jefferson, west of the old diesel yard, the Bayless Avenue crossing. Looking west, that switch you see is Jeff Interlocking. Looking east, you see the old yard that was discontinued as a storage yard in the late 90s when they opened up the new yard east of Columbia Street, east of town. Sometimes they store maintenance away equipment here, ballast cars, cars of concrete tires, but they don't store passenger equipment here anymore. Well, we have arrived at Port Jefferson. Actually, we're in the village of Port Jefferson Station, not Port Jefferson. That's a mile further north. Port Jefferson Station is a totally separate post office. But this beautiful station was built in 1903. This is not our last crossing that we're going to see. This is Main Street. It's a combination of New York Route 112 and 25A. 25A splits east a little ways south of here. Route 112 goes all the way down to Patchogue. Looking east, you can see the end of block signal. Station track is on the left. The 3 tracks on the right were former storage yard tracks. They don't use them anymore. Looking west, you see the main track on the right, and on the left, all those empty former storage tracks. And looking to the north, if you look closely behind that traffic light down there of Sheep Pasture Road, you can see a little gray area. That's the Long Island Sound. We're way above the village of Port Jefferson here. It's quite a steep climb to get off out of the harbor to get up here. Just been informed via the public address system that service east of Huntington to Port Jefferson is suspended due to a person being struck on the tracks at Greenlawn. So I think we've seen about all the trains we're going to see. But I got one more crossing to show you. Our last crossing, we've covered every inch of the Port Jefferson Branch in the non-electrified territory. Every crossing, a few bridges, stations, and a few trains for an entertaining sojourn along the scenic branch. This is Columbia Street, just west of the new Port Jefferson Yard. Before the yard was built in the late 90s, there were two tracks that dead-ended here, and they used to store a couple of diesel trains here. Looking east, you can see into the yard, and you can see the two Duomo trains that we saw, 658 and 660. Years ago, until 1938, the tracks continued on to Wading River, but that was discontinued at that time, and it ended here after that. When it was built, it ended here, and then it was extended to Wading River and then cut back. A lot of people wish it was extended to Wading River again because of all the traffic on 25A, but have to knock a lot of houses down to build the right-of-way. Looking west, see the remnants of the yard here. Used to be a wide track here for turning locomotives. Years ago, back in the 90s, before that, they ran conventional consists with Alcos and GP38s, and during the rush hour, they turn engines on the wide track like crazy. It was the greatest show in town on the railroad. Not anymore. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trackside tour on the scenic Port Jefferson Branch.